All right, the next part is architect update, Kevin.
So the Facilities Council met last week, and we had reviewed, we've met twice now in the last month, and reviewed all of the different proposals and specs that were submitted from various architects as we look for a new architect to complete our life safety and safety reference plans and also be an architect in any future projects going forward. We ranked and the architects according to the statute, and DLA was came out first, so we had a separate meeting last Thursday where myself, Mr. McGinnis, Joel Hatchie from Aramark, Mr. Walsh, and Dr. Keene all met with the representatives from DLA, and we had a very thorough and a good meeting, and we all were in agreement that we'd like to bring DLA forward tonight to meet the Board of Education. They'll conduct a brief presentation, and they want to discuss two proposals they have for us. And then I will allow the board, I shouldn't say, the board will have an opportunity to ask the representatives from DLA any questions they may have. And then I'd ask that the board consider taking action on this matter at the first meeting of February. So with us tonight are Dwayne Lutzow and Carrie Matlock. Dwayne is the CEO for DLA, and Carrie Matlock is a partner for DLA and would serve as our on-site architect for Riverside Brookfield High School. And I'd ask them to come forward. You can pull a chair up if you need to. And
Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. It certainly is a pleasure. I know you have a myriad of information about us that you probably have been going over, but just very quickly, next month DLA will be celebrating our 30th anniversary. I know it's probably hard to believe that I was actually one of the founding partners of the firm, but Bruce Dahlquist and I, we always said that we actually started the business when we played Little League Baseball together, so we were lifelong friends. We now have 8 partners. Carrie is one of our partners, and it certainly has helped us improve the quality of services that we have for all of our school districts in the area. Carrie and I get the privilege of talking with you tonight, but rest assured we have 33 very capable people back at the office that really know education architecture. It's helped us become one of the top 25 firms in the country, even though all of our work is done in the Chicago metro area. So it means that we really have a very strong representation and a lot of credentials that in school architecture. Our project manager is in walking distance, maybe not tonight, but is in walking distance of the school, so I think it's really important that we have community representation on our team as well. As for myself, I have a fond remembrance of RB. My wife actually taught here for 7 years until we started our family. And then she continued on doing adult ed with Triton College. So we've had a lot of memories, and I have a few new hallways for me to learn, but I hope that'll happen very quickly. In your packet, you'll find a list of high schools, local high schools that we're involved with: Lyons Township, Homewood Flossmoor, all the Lincoln Way schools. We've actually worked there since 1992. And you know, I'm sure the committee has found that we have many lasting relationships. One of the superintendents I've worked with is almost 36 years now, so we really believe in those long-term relationships and doing very high-quality work. But one thing that you will find is that we treat every school as an individual entity. We have a lot of experience, but we also understand that every school has its own set of rules, and not rules, but just customs and standards that they want to adhere to. And you're going to hear a lot from Carrie and I about form follows learning. And as we design your spaces, we truly believe that the architecture should facilitate education and make sure that it is an attribute to the educational process. And so you're going to hear a lot about that as we design some of our spaces.
And a little bit more about me. I'm actually a life safety expert in our office and with the Illinois State Board of Education. I'm one of only 2 licensed professionals in the state of Illinois who are certified by ISBE to present the Health and Life Safety Workshop Academy course to administrators throughout the state. So that's important. What that means is I know that code book very well, I know the state laws very well, and I'm certainly very prepared to help you with the next steps that you need to take at RB. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the proposal that you have in front of you. There are 2, if you set aside the list of our clients. On the left-hand side is the proposal for the 10-year survey. This would fulfill all the requirements that the state asks of you for an architect to survey your facility and create safety reference plans. And that we're proposing to do for a sum of $30,000. That's a lump sum fee. And again, it would meet all the criteria that the state requires. When we discussed this with your committee and administration last week, it was determined that a comprehensive look at your building might be able to be accomplished at the same time, and thereby saving some money for your district. So we proposed a facility assessment report, which would be a top-down review of your facility. In addition to the code analysis that would be prepared with the life safety, this would also look at aesthetic and long-term maintenance issues. And so that would be a comprehensive planning tool that your district could use to look at a big picture for the next 10 years. And with that, we would offer to do that for an additional $18,000. So for a total of $48,000, you would accomplish the 10-year survey as well as the facility assessment.
And the safety reference plan.
And the safety reference plans, absolutely.
And what's the safety reference?
Those are floor plans and a site plan that document different types of life safety fixtures, door ratings, firewall ratings, lighting, different types of emergency lighting, fire alarm devices, and so on. And it's all documented on a plan that keeps on file in your school district.
On the 10-year survey, you will go from top to bottom, right?
That's
From
correct.
roof to basement to everything.
Yes, we'll look at things like the roof on the 10-year survey. We would look at it, and if there are sections that need to be replaced immediately or within the next 5 years, we would consult with your district about writing that up as part of the amendment. And the difference, what we would accomplish with the facility assessment is we would do a detailed plan of your roof and talk about what kind of material is up there, when was the last time it was replaced, document all the warranties that you have on file, and really make it a good tool for you to have in-house that you could access at any given point with your maintenance staff and your administration.
During our discussions with DLA, the board members and myself that were at the advisory council, that was one of the questions that we had, was that I believe Tim Walsh brought this up a couple months ago, is that we don't even we need to get a plan in place for just annual repair and maintenance of our facilities. So as you're doing a life safety survey and they're inspecting our building and doing the walkthrough, as they identify things that are going to be needed for repair that don't qualify under the life safety, we should be documenting these and putting a plan in place so that over the next 10 years until our next life safety, we have a repair and maintenance schedule in place so that we can budget annually and break these projects up so that maybe we replace a section of roof every year, a section of sidewalk. We look at different alarm systems that need upgrading or sprinkler heads that need to be changed out, things like that, instead of just waiting till something breaks and then having to fix it. It's a good plan, and the board members and myself that were with me thought it makes sense to do it in unison as we do the safety reference.
I think there was another reason that we discussed too, and that is if you just do the life safety plan, and again, there's levels of the need to urgency, and we hit some top urgencies, for instance, or even second. If we do both at the same time, we could look to see, well, you have to do this under life safety, but if you do this project at the same time, you're hiring the same trades, doing it at the same time period, and it could save you money in the long, kind of like you doing both things at once.
Right, some
There's some
economy of
economies of
scale.
scale there. So we thought that was another reason that we should give some consideration to do both at one time.
Absolutely, saving on some construction redundancy possibilities and looking at the district as a whole.
With this facility assessment, doing it, will you also look at maintenance-wise, how our maintenance is, making recommendations on that too?
Absolutely, it would be, those items would be documented.
They showed us a book that was about this thick, Matt, for
You have a
Lyons
copy if you're
Township.
interested in it.
I forget how many acres of roofs they have, but as an example where they show the worst condition, and I don't want it to mean LT because they're keeping up on it, but the areas that would be most urgent, the next urgency, and the next urgency, so they could plan accordingly.
This is sort of a sample of what
Yeah.
we proposed for, this is part of the roof plan, and we do this on lots of different levels. But what it does is it shows you the high, medium, and low priorities of your roofs. And we also document the warranties, and we put whatever data is available, we try to get it into one place. But what we're trying to do is avoid the surprises. It's a holistic approach at your building. You start to look at the spaces, the red being more important and more immediate. And as we start doing those, we keep these up to date. Every 2-3 years, we'll go back and change them. But what it does, it gives you an idea that we have to start planning for larger expenditures. And those are the important things, because we know you don't like surprises, and we try to minimize those along the way.
Now, with the life safety survey that you're gonna do, will you then, if you identify, I know there are A, B, and C categories, for the A ones that need to be fixed right away, you will help us work to generate that? Not, you're gonna get the bonds first, but help us with the paperwork to make that happen, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll sit down with it. We're going to develop a whole comprehensive report, but we're going to sit down with administration and Joel and really go through the whole process so they understand exactly where items are. Some of the items could be an A or a B. We're going to work with you to decide what's the best plan of attack for you to make sure that that the documents work for you as well.
Now, people watching tonight, they're gonna see why we just put all this new building up. You know, why do we need this? Why do we need this? I'd like a professional to tell me.
I don't think every area of your building was touched with this last go-around of construction. There were certain goals that were in mind that needed to be met, and they were met, is how I understand it.
Okay.
And we've talked a lot about your roofs, which there's a lot of areas that were completely untouched in the process, and so we want to give you a comprehensive look at those and other things. We've talked about bleachers and floor sanding and all those kinds of things that were not part of the project. We can now take a look at all of the remaining items to help you set a course for the.
So the issue that we've been having in the natatorium, the pool area, with your study and that stuff like that, you would also be able to identify that if there was an issue with that, right? Provide input into it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
What's your timeline, assuming we pull the trigger on this?
The ideal timeline for us would be to get into the building when it's unoccupied, so we can access it completely. So, looking toward summer.
Spring
break.
break.
Spring break would be another thing.
Maybe do the life safety
Yeah.
at spring break. and the
Well,
rest
we'd
in
like to,
summer or something.
ideally, the cost savings would be to do those surveys at the same time, so.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that we'll probably also try and do. We may be looking at some of the environmental reports and on some of the areas of the building. We'll also probably start getting the safety reference plans done. We'll be gathering information along the way. So that time between approval and moving forward and spring break even, we would be looking at a lot of documentation and trying to gather some information to formulate some ideas.
Just to remind the board, our formal life safety is not due till 2015. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
But the advantage that one of the things is we know we have some significant concerns with some of our bleachers and our stadium area. The idea of bringing them in is that this gives us enough time and flexibility to move at our pace. We know we still need to look at financing structures, and they can start working on pieces of this, and then we can work with them on when we want to hit submit. Because once you hit submit and the report's turned into the state and the report approves the life safety report, for those items labeled as an A or a top priority, you only have a year from there to begin planning and construction and some of those things. So we want to make sure that this is well thought out, but this gives us enough time so that once we get an architect retain an architect, we can slowly start taking this by piece, and then we can open some committees to the public to help with some of the other planning and some of those things. So,
Any other questions for DLA?
In general, if we're talking about roofs, you said that during the construction period, certain portions of the building didn't have new roofs on them. Did you find any kind of survey or plan in place that we had that outlined those sections of the building that weren't replaced, and how we have planned or not planned to do anything about them?
I'm only relying upon information that was relayed to us about there may be some roofs that need to be replaced, in the
And
coming
then,
years.
and then anytime a roof needs to be replaced, that means it's pretty old, right? Does that also mean it's also a life safety issue, or is only if it's in terrible shape, is it a life safety issue, and otherwise it's a construction issue?
It depends on what portion of it is in failure and what exactly your definition of failure is. If it's allowing water to infiltrate into the building and causing a moisture issue that's constant that could cause a air quality issue down the road, then yes, it is a life safety issue. If it's not and just needs to be on a watch list for your district so that you can budget those monies appropriately over the coming years, then while life safety funds can still cover that, it is not necessarily a life and threatening situation.
In the last few weeks, have you toured the building? And
We have toured the building, but we haven't surveyed your roofs in this weather yet.
It's not a good idea at this point, just because they'll crack. Any blisters would just shatter, and then you'd really have a problem.
Okay,
So, but we have toured the entire facility.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We'll take up,
So is the board,
I-
should we bring this then to a vote?
yeah. Any issues with it?
Well, are
Well,
we
you
going
need
to
to
see
know.
other architects,
Yeah.
or did you?
The
council-
statute is very, well, I'm not representing as your counsel, but it's a very contrived statute. If you're happy with the first one, you get to pick them and ask them their price and pick them. And if you're unhappy, you move on to number 2 and you can't go back to number 1.
You're not allowed to let them compare prices?
You're not allowed to do an RFP and compare them and pick the one, you'll compare them all together and pick your price. Pick the one you like, I should
But
say.
we had a price with an architect for the same work, and this board said that they wanted to look at other architects.
And this is the process of looking at a new architect. First, it requires you send an RFP and have them respond based on, without pricing, and based on the responses to rank them, which we did, that's why we had the first meeting. And then after we ranked them, we have to go to the first one in our ranking and talk to them and get their price, decide whether we like them and we'll accept their price. And if we do, we can vote on it, choose them as a board. And if we don't, we move on to number 2 and we have to take number 1 off the list.
Laura, the price for number 1 was only for life safety, so we're actually getting all this extra for the same price.
Still a little less.
No, not quite, because 48,000 wasn't their price for just life safety,
It was
Safety,
50-something.
51,000 was their price,
for everything.
for
No,
just life
for life
safety,
safety.
which includes the
So
safety
these are
reference.
$30,000 less for the same thing.
I would have to look at that, because I seem to remember that the 51,000 was for more than that.
Well, and Laura, again, based on the statute, the prior architect we considered chose not to respond. We can't consider them anymore.
Right, and I'm not saying we go back to the prior architect, it's just the business of the council. Typically, when we vote on a vendor, the board, maybe the council might whittle down the pool, and then the final opponents would, or the final contestants, whatever, would come to the board. So this is different, feels a little bit like board work being done in the councils,
No, stop for a second, though. The rule
okay?
tells you cannot put them all, look at them all together and get all their prices and then rank them and pick one. You have to just get subjective information about them, whoever responds. Based on the subjective information, you have to rank them, and you have to go to the first one and ask them to give you their price, and you could talk to them more, and you either have to choose them or you have to reject them and move on to number 2. And if the next guy comes in, it's a little unclear, because we did go with the one we thought was the top, of if the next one came in like, Kevin, do we know if they even came in higher, or we just didn't like them as much?
You can't get price.
Yeah, we can't,
So we had to go off of all their specs, and we reviewed
Yeah.
all their credentials that were submitted, and that's why I had.
that's the way it was
The council helped
explained to us.
So what happens if a board doesn't like, goes through 3 and just doesn't like any of them, and then?
You would re-put out the
Do
RFP.
put out another
and-
RFP.
And those
Yeah.
3 can't come back in, right?
They could
They
apply
could if you
again.
do it over, I think.
So when you were ranking them, on what criteria, how did you select the ones to be first?
Myself, Tim McGinnis, Joel Hatchie, John Keane, Tim Walsh were in a room.
If you look, my shredding over there was a reports about this thick that each one of them presented on their history, their resume, their experience. Some of them, to be perfectly honest, and some of them addressed life safety like DLA did. Some of them didn't even mention life safety in it. So at least one, I think it might have been two, we just rejected because we sent out the RFP to get a life safety, and they talked about look past that and how they would be the architect after. And then we, Kevin and Tim had gotten background information and had some experience, I think, with some of them. And, you know, again, you can't rely on price. So you're relying on experience, knowledge people have, and how they presented their information versus what we asked for. And we felt that, based on that criteria, that we ranked DLA first. Would you say anything different than that, John?
No, I'd just add that they seem to have some experience just in athletic facilities and like the pool and some of the issues that we've had here and are going to need to address. That was an extra plus from my standpoint.
Did you develop a table with the rest of them? With some
Yeah.
other criterion that where we as other board members could see
We
your
did,
ranking
we
system?
We did a ranking.
Pardon me?
We did do a ranking.
Yeah, we did a ranking.
So,
Can
Laura,
we as
it was
board members
handled,
see that?
it was handled statutorily like we were supposed to handle it and by law. Am I right, Tim? As we have to follow this for architect and everything else. So it's not like we're bidding out a food service or a bus contract or something like this. This is specifically what we had to follow by the law. And as Tim explained it, good, this is the procedure you need to have.
Well, as board members, it would be nice to know who was on that list and some of the criteria and some of the little check marks you put next to criteria, why you like these better. A couple check marks to see, and other names. Maybe some of the other board members might know of some of the other names because we know of schools on the north side or other places, and may be able to add to that conversation. Are there more names on the list, or is this it? Yes or no?
There were 5 architects.
4 names.
4. I'm sorry, one didn't respond.
Right.
So White, our current architect, did not respond.
Right.
You said 2 of them, Tim, right?
There were 4 total.
There were 4 total.
And 2 did not put in a life safety proposal?
They didn't really address the life safety. They
Right.
kind of addressed how they design construction plans.
Well, I think those are important marks on a chart. You know, those certainly would make
I left
two of the
DLAs at
architects
home,
come up.
But here were the other 3.
The board all got a copy of those too.
Did they?
Yeah.
All 7 board members got responses from
These were the other.
every architect.
When did we get these? We didn't get these.
About a month ago, they were available if you want them.
She's concerned.
They're available.
They were available, but when was it mentioned they were available?
At the
I
board
don't
meeting in
remember, I took a set
November.
of them.
Anybody could review those, or take those?
Okay, any other questions from DLA? All right, thank you very much. We'll talk to you in February. All right, we're done with the superintendent's report. We're going to take that quick break to take our picture right now, because all of our board members are here, and we'll be right back in 2 minutes.